Thanks so much. The power of paper, right? You bring your slides in paper. Thank you, Lord. My name is Gorr. I'm an independent technology consultant, and I've lived in this space for, I don't want to say how many years, because then you'll figure out how old I am, but suffice to say I started with proprietary systems. All right? And I've only lived in corporate legal and legal, so I've had the opportunity to learn a lot about what goes on behind those doors. People say to me, you choose to work with attorneys every day of your life? Yes. Smart people, but they're not great business people. They have different objectives and different goals than we do as technologists. How many of you here as a technologist have a degree in marketing? Oh, good for you, okay. Well, there you go. But the majority of us did not get into this space in a straight line trajectory, right? We've come at it from a bunch of different angles, and we've learned over the years how to make and meet with success, right? So I started out as a school teacher. Was not going to live in that space because I couldn't deal with administration, right? Not that I couldn't teach, but what are you doing? So I've taken that same bend into technology. I was given a great opportunity to start in technology in the early 80s, and they said, well, you can do all of these things. We can teach you the technology. So that's kind of how I got into this space, and I've stayed in that space, and you continue to learn. And I think that what's challenging for all of us now is I often say to people, oh, guess what? I have a title now. I'm in change management. I had no idea I was in change management, but they now have a title for what I've been doing for a whole lot of years. And I think that that's the challenge for you is how do I wear different hats other than what I've been assigned to in my organization? So based on the size of your organization, you might have people with names on their doors. You know, there might be a director of IT, thank you so much. There might be a director of IT, there might be a director of records management, there might be all these different director levels. But more than likely, your environment, if you're following the model of mine, which are, you know, and I'm going to talk a lot towards legal, so we'll translate that into other things, but I'm talking about a 25 to 200 attorney firm, right? So that equates into 50, 60 to 400, right? And in the 50, 60, all we have are hair on fire people, right? We don't have IT people. We have hair on fire. Everything's an emergency. Everything's a crisis. So we need to change the way in which we think about how do we address selling information. We got to get the right buyers. And while this says sell to the C-level, that is just one component. You better be talking way before you get to the C-level. There are a whole lot of things that I talk about when I get to people, and I think my claim to fame is the ability to take something small, you know, difficult and difficult to understand, and let's put it into pictures, right? People like pictures, right? So I use this, and you can change this to corporate legal, you can change it to any other vertical market. We all have pretty much the same rules and regulations that we have to follow in some level or another. But I use this and I say, this is what you need to be a grown-up law firm. Like, this is what I usually come in and I'll say, these are the things you need to do. And we talk to that. Where are you on this roadmap? Do you have an enterprise content management system of some sort? How are you doing with the mobility? Like, you know, oh, what do you mean by that? We have mobile phones. Well, good for you, right? Let's figure out, what does that mean to me? Do we have productivity? So all the things we've been hearing all week. Right, all week, thank God, I listened to Cheryl McKinnon when I think, oh, thank God I'm on message, right? So, you know, we have to identify that we have all 10 of these things in our toolkit, and they are not optional. They are not optional. So that's where I usually start. And so when you talk about what do we need to be doing, well, first of all, you really have to understand your C-suite culture. Is there somebody techie in that environment? Is there somebody that understands the risk? Is there somebody that's been going to association events and said, oh my goodness, and they're coming back? Chances are they're not, but you might have somebody that's there. Do they have initiatives that they're starting? Is there, you know, at their first of year meetings, are they talking about, these are the things that are on our objectives list? You need to start aligning your, you know, because it's not just an IT decision. Oftentimes I get into firms and organizations where IT has made really bad decisions because they did not enlist the help of following what the strategy of the organization was, what the long-term, short-term goals were. They're not doing that. They're just saying, I know what's best. We do not, just like we don't want our data in 29 silos, we can't have 29 silos when we're deciding an information governance strategy. So you need to develop that strategy, and you need to have an idea, and you might be, you know, probably the most suitable person in your organization to do that. However, we don't live by ourselves, right? We are supported by many others. And if we don't do that roadmap and we don't understand what the secretaries need and what the paralegals need and what our engineers need, if we don't understand that, there is no way we can build a roadmap, because there will be a place where you go on a detour and you can't get back on the road. So it's really important that you refine. It is not what I call a one and done. What I actually like to say is, find yourself somebody in management, somebody that is a buy-in person. Meet them in the elevator, invite them to coffee, ask them, and don't just always talk to them about IT or I need money. Usually when they see you and you're saying I need money every time, they are getting off on a different floor, right? They do not want to be around you. So find somebody that has a passion for that. Learn something about them. Find out something. Have something, because what did we learn at our keynote, right? It's about relationships. It's about building relationships. So you are not going to be able to deploy your information governance strategy without a relationship. And that means across the board, and it's not just with the people at the top. You need to evangelize within the organization. Does your organization have a tech committee? Again, that lunchroom is a very powerful place to talk to people. Ask the secretaries what you're doing, what's going on. Sit with other people. Sit with the accounting manager and find out. I have a question I ask when I do audits and I ask people about process. If I had a magic wand and I could let you have one wish, and I preface it with it's not learning the lotto and it's not like all these other things, but if I could give you one thing that you could change about your technology, what would you do? And they're very willing to share that with you. And then that leads to conversations upon conversations, so that you're able to say, in a finite manner, hey, there's more, here's some other areas that I knew nothing about. And then you can continue the conversation. You see Sally in the parking lot. Hey, Sally, thanks for that information. I wondered if we could schedule some time to talk about some other things. Could you bring in your accounting team to find me what their prompt? So it is all about building networks and relationships and moving forward, because you are not by yourself and you cannot make these decisions. And I would say, first of all, take off the technology hat. If you wear hats, do not wear this one when you're talking to people. Do not talk to people about terabytes. Do not talk to them in acronyms. They do not know what SFTP means. They don't know what DLP means. They don't know what any of those acronyms are. Actually, when I give a CLE in New Jersey, and the attorneys were laughing at me, I gave them a whole acronyms list. When somebody shows up selling you something and you don't know what it is, just turn to the back of this page, because it's going to have what are these names? What do they mean to me? And so we are so ingrained in what it is that we do. It'd be the same thing as somebody telling me how I need to change whatever inside my car. Like, that is not happening. So, the same frustration you feel when somebody starts talking techie is the same frustration they feel, and it's just, okay, he's not listening or she's not listening. I'm not going to get involved. But if you can bring buy-in, if you can say, hey, I got this really cool thing, can I show you this? And take them to some place to show them something, or take them someplace to say, hey, I'd like your input. You'll start saying, hey, I kind of like what you're talking to me about. And they are talking to me like I'm real humans, and that I've got an idea of how to do that. Another thing that I say about making the business case for the business suite pitch is get that, just like when we go out looking for jobs, we have an elevator pitch. What is it that you do? This should not be a shock to you. You should be able to say, hey, this is what we're doing and why we're doing it, and here's how you can help. You are now a salesperson. You are a salesperson. You are a salesperson, you're a consultant, you're a technologist, you're a change management. You are that person that's going to go in and you get, if you're standing there next to the CEO and he's like, hey, John, how was your weekend? Oh, it was great. How about yours? What's going on with technology? You better have that 30-second, 15-second, here's what we're doing. Oh, we're working on this, and I'd like your buy-in, and can you? But you better have, it's kind of like when you do that first date phone call, right? Let me tell you all about me, right? So it's that kind of be ready to say something about where you're headed. And again, you better know your audience. If I had a client that I'm helping them now. Wasn't helping them before, and he called me before they signed the contract and said, "Oh, I now have to go in, talk to the tech committee tomorrow." Tomorrow? What do you have for them? Well, I don't know. I was just going to go in and ask them how much I get to spend. What? No, that's not the way sales works. Like, you go in and you tell them what you need. Don't ask them what they're going to give you, because they're going to give you 0% of 0, right? You are not going to win on that. So you need to know your audience, know your stuff, know who you're talking to, know when you're going to get in there. Because quite honestly, you're not talking to the C-suite without having done all this other groundwork before. If you are only starting at the C-suite and you have not done all that building underneath to say where we're headed, because it's not a big secret. I know some people think, we're not going to tell them anything. They don't need to know. They're just end users. They don't need to know what we're doing. No, that's like the worst thing in the world, is to not, because what do we do when somebody tells us we have to change the way we're doing something? Right? That we close up, the crossed arms, the crossed legs, the crossed eyes, the rolling eyes, like all those things happen. So if you start feeding them, hey, change is coming, when change shows up, it's not, it's not like I'm being hit with a hurricane, right? I am a big proponent on getting your vendors in early, and your tech partners. I'm a really big proponent of that. It doesn't mean you have to buy from them. I'm so sorry, tech partners. But that means learn. If you're evaluating 4 SFTP things, learn from every single one of those vendors. Ask them to help you. You will have figured out what's going to work best for your culture before then. But let them become part. Let them buy into this. I need help selling. This is not what I signed up for, right? All I want to do is sit in the IT office and try to do my IT stuff. I don't want to be a sales rep. But your tech partners and the vendors that are out there, they have slides, they have statistics, they have videos, they have preset pitches. They can work with you to start presenting your case to people. Don't do this in a vacuum. Like, don't think that you have to go it alone. You are not the first person walking down the information governance strategy map, right? You're not the first person. Why do we always feel that we have to reinvent the wheel? Crazy. Do you think this slide deck is all by itself? There's probably slides that have been given on some point across the way. So as you start talking to people and you're developing your notes, you're going to do that because in your mind, in the back of your mind, in your elevator pitch, you're working towards that day when they say, hey, Ann, can you come in and talk to the C-suite? That better not be the first time you're thinking about it. That better not be like, oh my goodness. It's like taking a college course and going into the finals without having opened the book. Some people might be able to pull that off, but I'm going to bet the majority of people fail. So use your stuff that comes from the vendors. Let them help you. Network with other IT professionals. I am going to assume if you're here, you have a network. You have people that you can talk to who are similar in size, similar in nature, similar in ideas, and that you can say, hey, what did you do, Kevin, for this whatever? Don't just make it all about elbow bending at the association meeting, right? There's more to life than elbow bending. Though sometimes around here that isn't always the case, but there's more to life than elbow bending. So if I can do that, find out what they've done. Go find out from your colleagues that you're on different committees with, hey, we're thinking of doing whatever. What was your experience there? Who did you run into problems with? What was the biggest hurdle? Start asking those questions. Have those questions in your head, and it's kind of like the elevator pitch, It's the same thing. Hey, who did you find was your biggest ally? Who did you find was your biggest detractor? What did your end users experience? How did that rollout go? Use the information that you have already built into your network to get that to happen. And then at that point, once you've done all of this background work, it's kind of like getting ready for your master's thesis. You've done a lot of work. You've done a lot of research. You've got all this. And now someone says, okay, it's show and tell time. You get to come in front of the executive committee and say, I'm going to give you the information you need. So when I get to that point, now we pull out the dog and pony with the slides, right? We're going to be doing the dog. And you need to know those slides inside out. You should not be standing here referencing, I got to get this, I got to get that. First of all, what do we know? Who can tell me what's the thing we know most about at the C-suite level? How long should that slide deck be? Yes, tiny, 5, 10 slides max. And they all better tie it all together because they told you had 2 hours and guess what, we only have an hour. So you better be ready to spin on a dime, turn on a dime, spin the bottle, do whatever you need to do, but you can't be fumbling and you just want to get your information across in a very succinct manner. So how do you do that? So I like to do things by showing them regulatory things. Like, all right, in your market, you know what you have to meet from a guidelines perspective. Is it up there for you? Start showing them things that are important to their industry and things that are going to cause them great pain if it's not followed, right? So any one of these up here, depending on where you are you in banking? Are you in the energy industry? Are you in insurance? Are you in legal? They all have certain rules that they have to follow. In addition to whatever the national rule set is, they have their own independent things that they have to follow. So make sure you've tacked on what the industry regulations are and whether or not your organization is meeting those. That's an important one. Well, guess what? We didn't do this, right? And here's where we're not compliant, or here's where we're not doing it. It's very easy. Visuals are very easy. I work with attorneys all the time. People say, how do you get them to understand? I show them the same rules they got to follow, right? I give them the rules they got to follow. This is the best one. This is the one that, for years the attorneys did not need to. They could go into court and say, well, I didn't understand that I had to have backups, or I didn't understand I had to do these things, right? So this area here that's saying including the benefits and risks associated with relevant technology. I can tell you there's states that have not adopted it. New Jersey's one of them. But this is kind of an almost national process, and they have to know what it is they're doing. If they don't know, they can't, they're going to get sanctioned. They have loss of license. And so or Sedona, those of you that are in e-discovery, show them what they're going to miss. This is what the Sedona rules say. So this is language that they're familiar with, and all of a sudden they go, oh, this impacts me. This isn't just setting up a server and seeing if my SAN works, right? This is well beyond that. I also like to lead with statistics. And it was something that I found interesting when Nick was pulling together speakers. Use statistics to support what it is you're doing, right? It makes more value. I mean, I got to think I know what I'm talking about, right? And I'm an industry expert and a subject matter expert. However, if I go to other people that have done, a bajillion loads of statistics, then they can provide me with that data. Start using that, because then it becomes very apparent to them that, hey, this isn't just Ann telling me I need to do this. These are people that are in this particular vertical, whether it's the vertical that they work on, or whether it's a gardener, or whether it's us. Whatever it is, you're going to ask them to lead with statistics, because if you don't have the supporting statistics, they go, oh, okay, right, well, Ann just said that, right? So I like to do that. Now, some other things that are important. So how did I do this? Recently, I'm doing a presentation tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning that I have to, I started to show them what their budget was. I went to the ILTA survey, took the ILTA survey statistics and said, we're trying to figure out where we align. I mean, these aren't the same numbers for that firm, but where do we align in relationship to where the rest of my industry is sitting? So they're kind of sitting a little above average, and they could see that. If they were like spending $3,000, you could say, hey, look what everybody else is doing in our space, right? So putting some sort of a statistic, and you'll notice not a whole lot of words and a big graphic. Putting a whole lot of words on a slide is death by PowerPoint, right? Some other things that I like to show people. And obviously I put this one, I put a whole bunch of them on, but to the point of Cheryl McKinnon this morning was saying they want to know how to be more profitable. So these were things, find the things that go back, again, knowing your initiatives, knowing what the primary goal of the organization is, knowing what they're trying to improve. Is it we're trying to cut spend by 1/3, or we're trying to improve productivity by 2? Go find the statistics that support, because there'll be just as many statistics that will not support your argument. Find the ones that will support your argument and throw them up there. So in this case, like if they were looking about upgrading servers, which I don't know why anybody's doing that these days, but why are they upgrading servers, right? This is where people are spending their money. Here, we're in alignment, we're doing the same things. So I just pulled a few things out of there, and that they're investing in productivity, efficiency, and automation for profits. Profit, profit, profit. There isn't anybody that doesn't want to hear that. Another thing that's really helpful is to start building TCO and ROI, all right? Total cost of ownership, return on investment, those crazy acronyms again, right? I did not go to business school. This is not my forte. I've learned how to do it quite well, but this is not what my favorite thing is to do. Guess what mine is? So I like to, share information and evangelize, but you have to come up with statistics. I can talk my way through just about anything, but I need to show them total cost of ownership. So how am I going to do that? You're going to say, here's all the options that are on my table. So if I was going to decide I'm doing an upgrade and I want to do an upgrade and go into a DMS environment, I have a couple of options. What would it be if I did it all on-prem? What would it be if I did it in the cloud? What would I be if I did a hybrid model? You have to price those all out. Go back to that vendor. Have them help you. Most of them have total cost of ownership charts that they can email you the minute you say help, right? And they'll show you how to do that, and they'll have all the formulas in there. And then you have to go doing a lot. So this is, again, not, don't decide on Thursday that you're going to prepare for that presentation on Friday. This is a lot of work. This is a lot of work. Again, that wasn't what I signed up for. Well, it's what you're in charge of now. So figure out how to make yourself look a success. So you end up having to identify both hard costs and soft costs. So in a total cost of ownership, you also need to show what is it going to cost me, but what am I saving? So if I'm going to a cloud model, well, then I'm reducing that server maintenance cost. If I'm going to a cloud model, I'm removing software licensing fees. Like I'm removing a lot of different things out of my existing budget so that I can show a net, right? Where am I saving, where am I going? But that's what a total cost of ownership is. Return on investment is a little harder to quantify. You know, there are going to be some things that you can statistically say, we're going to reduce printing by this much, or we're going to reduce Iron Mountain storage fees by X number. Those are things you can quantify if it's a straight number. Things you can't quantify, perhaps, is productivity improvement. That's kind of a big variable. And I have a couple of charts to show you ways that I've done that. Again, do not come to that meeting with the total cost of ownership on your slide. Do not do that. You can give them that handout. They will never be able to see it on the PowerPoint, and most often, all they want is that one number. They only want the one number. What's it going to cost me in a CapEx environment? What's it going to cost me in an OpEx environment? That's all they want to know. So don't go into the weeds, because we go into the weeds. We want you to know everything there is to know about the project we're working on. They don't. So the other thing, again, the vendors, they're going to be the ones that can help you. And ask them to do the work. They're going to get the sale. Ask them to do the work. They can do that. They have whole marketing teams that's all they do. So use them. So some things that I wanted to show you that I've done, like this is a productivity savings that I did for a law firm that said they were going to a DMS. If everybody there, very conservative effort, saved 6 minutes, and that's very conservative, 6 minutes searching for emails, right? Or the documents, whatever their search time was from an administrative perspective. I broke it down to say, here's how many people you have. This is how much time they're losing every day in hours. Here's how many days of the year they're working. And then what's the total hours lost? And then you translate that into an hourly rate and you give them okay, well, we think that you are going to be saving $624,000. If the implementation of my entire DMS is going to be $400, I think I can get that in a year. I can get that back in a year. Someone will challenge you to say, oh, Ian, there's no way. I'm going to tell you that number is really conservative. That is a really conservative number. So show them charts like that, and they'll go, oh, I am? Here's another thing I've done. I steal it with pride. I did this because I got so tired of seeing the bajillion charts, and we have 82 things. I just did, here's what it's going to cost me initially, and here's all the line items. So I went to that total cost of ownership and said, here's what's going to cost me. And here's what the ongoing expense is, because that's really what they want to know. Yes?
The cost of doing nothing.
And the cost of doing, well, that's a whole nother story, the cost of doing nothing, because that's into the risk, right? That's in the risk. So the comment was, or the cost of doing nothing. But in this case, it's just, here's what it is, and here's what you have to invest up front. They have leasing. Again, go to your vendor. They work with leasing companies. They can help you get this to a manageable monthly expense instead of people pocketing, going into the pocket and having to rip out $200,000 to get started. And then if they go on to the ongoing, what's my software expense? What's my ongoing monthly expenses that I'm going to have to pay, so that they can go, oh, okay, I can do this, right? And again, you're looking back on that total cost of ownership. You've showed them what they've saved, right? You've showed them, hey, we don't have to do X, 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 right? So those are things that will help you. I like to show, this goes back to your question, show them potential risks. We've all been here to hear risks, right? And my favorite phrase to say to every one of them is, you really don't know what you really don't know. That is, anybody that knows me goes, well, they really didn't know what they didn't know, right? You thought you had your backup and disaster recovery plan in place until when it went down and it came back up, it didn't come back up, right? You didn't know that was a problem. I didn't know. Like, how many times did we hear, I had no idea that our laptops weren't encrypted and that they got lost in the back of a cab. I had to do that? Yes, you had to do that, right? So again, we just live in the world in which we do our things and we don't expand. So the big thing here, and we've heard about it over and over, you don't want to be on the front, the top fold of the New York Times. You don't want to be the trailer on the bottom of CNN News. You don't want to be the person that's having that reputational risk show up. And then you have to show what's the risk inside your environment right now. I often suggest you go out and get an audit. Just go out and get an audit. Don't have to pay the top dog audit. Just get a cursory audit, because they'll pull up plenty. There will be plenty. Unless you're really diligent in what you do, there will be plenty. I had a firm that we did an audit because I knew everything was wrong. Like, you're just listening to the story, I'm like, oh, this is way worse than you think it is. And they came in and they handed me the report, and they were going in front of the tech committee, and they handed me the report. And I said, oh guys, this is really bad. This is really bad. I said, well, before you go into the meeting, could someone please take the sticky note off the console server for the network, right? On the admin server. I'm like, and is there a lock on that door? No. Please go get the sticky note off that door that had the password and the how to get in. I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? Or, hey, guess what? Nobody ever thought it was necessary to remove fired employees from the Active Directory. How long has that been going on, right? So it's that kind of stuff. You need to identify where is the big fall down for you. And then you take risk statistics. So there's plenty of risk statistics that we've been seeing all week. I'm just going to give you a few. John Jablonski provided me with this for another session. That's a pretty high risk, right? That's going to happen. And if we don't have the right software in place, it's probably going to happen within 2 months, right? So those kinds of things. Here was another one. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. Oh my goodness. I had a firm that had a basement that they shared. It was like a remote office. There were maybe 4 attorneys in the remote office. They had a shared space downstairs. All the servers went downstairs. It was a 4-story building. Anybody that was just the Minnie Mouse kind of size, all their stuff was downstairs in the server room, and that was the server room, right? That picture showed their data was being commingled. Notice there's no lock. Notice there's no neatness. I would be having hives by the time I went down there. But that there's no structure, and that there was no, anybody could walk in and just put their USB, because I'm sure they weren't USB protected. They could just put their USB and start taking that intellectual property out of you. I had another firm that I went to that was down in Atlantic City. Now, when we had Hurricane Sandy, Atlantic City was underwater for about 3 weeks. And that firm was about a block off the ocean. But that's the firm, because they put all new servers in that office, was their disaster recovery site. I'm like, are you kidding me?